Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Premodern Super League. My name is William Hurst, host of the I've Got Questions podcast, and this new addition to our Premodern content. We are joined today by, I'm going to call him the Professor of Burn, a hardworking man, a man who has got some iron in his lungs. We are joined by Mr. Chris DiBiase. Chris, how are we doing?
Doing great, Will. Glad to be here. Really excited to get into these matches.
Absolutely. Chris here was a fellow participant here in the Premodern Super League. He was over in beautiful pod number A, what I call the late bloomer pod, the bane of my existence pod. But no, I kid. Everybody was great. But upcoming here, we are in pod B. Last week, we had a great time looking at pod D, finished up that action. Now we're moving into Pod B. And today we have two wonderful contestants. One is Arty. He is known as Soldier of Fortune online. And the other is Mclean, Denny. Umbishi online. I can never pronounce it right. So here we have Mclean, Denny. Mclean is on some Mono Black Zombies. Chris, you're a fellow competitor in the MOS. Tell me a little bit about when you face this deck, what this deck is doing.
So this deck, I love this deck. I don't love playing against this deck. He's got my number. But we're getting a lot of our classic zombies out onto the board. He's got a lot of, there's a lot of wonderful little synergies built into this deck that makes it really hard to kind of get ahead on card advantage. Plus, he's got a little disruptive, he's got a little duress, a little couple therapy, wasteland, so he's got a little bit of everything. He can come out really strong. The bad moons let him put a lot of power on the board very quickly. It doesn't fold as easily to an engineered plague in the same way that you might see from goblins or elves. And I don't think a lot of people are prepared for zombies, right? It's not what you think about when you think of sort of typal decks in the format.
100% agree. Probably the best Dark Ritual deck in the format. I mean, we know Dark Ritual into Hippie, Dark Ritual into Arena, into Bottomless Pit. But all of those are like, sometimes it gets you there, sometimes it doesn't. Here, you're Dark Ritualing into like something that goes like Carnophage, Sacromancy, like Sacromancy or something. Like, you're powering into power with this.
I think a big piece of it is a lot of times when you see something like Ritual into Hippie, that can be a recipe for a 2-for-1, right? Whether it's a swords or a bolt. But with Mclean's deck here, right, if he's ritualing it, it's usually two things coming out, right? And so you're not getting punished as much for investing in the ritual.
Exactly. And his sideboard, Mono Black, not the most diverse sideboards, but still a lot of answers. Things we don't get to see. Snuff Out, a greatness. Spinning Darkness, a lot of free spells. Contagion, sorry, I can't pronounce that right. Perish. I mean, these are some powerful cards we do not get to see a lot of. What do you think of the sideboard?
One thing I really like in this sideboard is, you have a lot of, usually I'm not a huge fan of 1 and 2 ofs, but what you see here is a lot of redundancy or ways to sort of tilt his deck in order to lean in the direction he needs to, right? So you need a little more card advantage, a little more grind. You get that Rot Long Reanimator that you can bring in there. I think it's a fascinating board, right? He covers a lot of bases. The deck's going to run smooth, right? Monocolor. Don't love to see the Spinning Darkness as someone who's often on burn, but you've got a lot of stuff going on here that I think is going to give him game against a lot of the field.
I mean, you're right about that. Probably after land tax went away, a deck that was still good before that, but the land tax parfaits were able to outvalue this deck and get ahead as they had no way to really beat up on an active ivory tower. You don't have a lot of ways to kill enchant or artifacts or even enchantments, really. So that was a real thorn. But with that deck falling by the wayside, honestly, I'm surprised this deck has not caught on more. It's very powerful. It's also relatively cost effective for those getting into the format. Yep. So what do you think about this deck as somebody who's just jumping into the format?
I think this is great. One of my first decks when I was, getting back into Magic in this would be at the end of the Onslaught block was a zombie typal deck. it's not that expensive. You don't have those like $25 sharpshooters that you're going to need, or compare it to the cost of like elves. So I think it's a great starting point, and he's been consistent. His results have been great.
Exactly. Now we're talking about one great player moving to another. We're talking about Arty, Soldier of Fortune, playing his red green Panza, red green Terra Panza. Really something. One of the innovators in this space.
Yep.
Between himself, between TV Tyrant, between
Yep.
Francisco.
Yeah.
What do you think of this deck? Definitely a more aggressive Panza deck.
It is. I have certainly seen this deck in action. When it runs very quickly. The devastating dreams, no one else is doing that, which I think is. I think Artie is just one of the most. He's one of the most willing people to kind of go out there and test some new ideas and really put it on the line and see how it plays out. I think Mulch is really solid in this particular list, especially because it's not just pushing for that large Terravore, but is happy just to get the 7 in the yard to get Threshold online for Werebear and Nimble Mongoose. And I think it allows you to play a more proactive game than something like Green White Oath Peluche typically does. And it's playing a different game, right? It's playing a more targeted game. You've got the Stone Rains, you've got Rays, you've got really a good mix here of land destruction in the suite.
Exactly. Terravore, as we all know, part of a renaissance here in pre-modern.
Yeah.
No other way to really say it. But Nimble Mongoose, once that thing gets on the board, a lot of times very problematic. One of the few truly shrouded characters you cannot touch. Werebear also getting pretty big. What do you think of a card like Rays?
I am iffy on Rays, but I think that it's very efficient, right? And if you have a clear plan in terms of how it's fitting into the synergy of the deck, right? As a 3 of, it's coming up fairly consistently, and it can get the job done. He can get those Mongooses and Werebears up to speed very, very quickly, and I think that's part of the overall package.
Exactly. And then looking at the sideboard, kind of what you'd expect to see. The bigger surprise in there is a Savage Twister. Not one we get to see a lot, but can be devastating when it comes out. You have your usuals. Really, the sideboard showing the power of enchantments and artifacts in this format and how you have to deal with them. What has been your experience playing against Arty kind of in the MOS with this deck? Or against this deck, I should say.
Yeah, so I have, I'm primarily on Burn, and so a lot of these matches come down to how quickly he can get a Mongoose down on the board. I think Werebear is interesting. There's been a lot of debate amongst those who are playing the Threshold style decks about whether or not this is a card that they really want to be running because it's so vulnerable on turn 2 if you run it out early. But we'll see how this plays out for Arty.
Exactly. We're going to go ahead and jump into the game. We got Mclean Denny on the bottom with his zombies. Arty on top. Looks like Mclean is on the play. Leading off here, Swamp. A point of note, because we see a Cabal Therapy, this was not an open deck list event, if I have not said it before. So Therapy, not as good in those circumstances. Arty going to go ahead and power out a Mox Diamond here. You have to assume the Werebear's happening.
You would think. How do you feel about this keep from Arty? I'm sorry, from Mclean.
In the lack of one drop hurts. Keeping a blind Therapy isn't great. He draws a Sacromancy, but
yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of card you want to see turn 1 and really start going there, so you can follow it up with a Bad Moon or, Shepherd of Rot. He's essentially, he feels a turn behind right now as far as tempo goes. All right. So it looks like we're going to get a Therapy. Mclean, who has played against this deck, has to know what's up now. Going to go ahead and say Swords to Plowshare. Not fully, not in remembering or assuming that Arty is on his red-green, makes a good choice with the swords.
I mean, that's sort of been where the deck has been at, right? You see these kind of openings up, and it's definitely green white. It's definitely got a higher percentage of the meta share in these threshold style decks, so it's a reasonable call in the blind.
Exactly. So he plays out Sacraments. He's got a zombie going. Has to be debating here. Do we go ahead and take out something from Arty's hand? But that really feeds a werebear. I think he just wants the blocker or the attacker in whatever case. Ooh, well, there's a draw by Arty. These lightning bolts showing their power right
Yep.
now.
Right, clear the board, get some stuff, some cheap stuff in your yard.
Mm-hmm. And the Sacramency also, if it has no zombies, it plays it
Yep.
sacrifice, or do you take damage from it? You take damage. Okay.
Take damage. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Which is not irrelevant.
It's not. Yeah, this match is really coming down to Mclean feels like he's just that turn behind, obviously.
Yeah. I think this is tricky because that double bad moon hand, puts you in a spot where you really need to have a board state to leverage that. And because we didn't lead on the one drop, we're just not quite there. And those bolts are going to kind of help contain the board for now.
Agreed. That mulch going to pick up 2 lands, one being a treetop. Lightning bolts just doing work.
Yep.
This matchup. That Lord of the Undead is not going to stick around.
No.
He is a crispy zombie lord. So Mongoose gonna get. Does he have enough? Nope, he's got enough even just to get threshold now.
Yep.
That Mongoose now outclasses essentially all the zombies.
That one of the things I wanted to say before was, this is really a 2-power format in a lot of ways, right?
Yes.
You don't see a lot outside of elephant tokens. You don't see a lot of 3/3s running around. Now, Bad Moon can shift the math, obviously, but 4/4s and 3/3s for cheap, especially 3/3s that you're going to have a very difficult time removing, absolutely present a challenge, especially with an empty board.
Yes. Got a couple of dead cards. Like Bad Moon right now in this kind of tempo-y
Yeah.
game is almost a dead card.
Yep.
Stone Rain also dead card-ish. I mean, the ability, I think right now it's, you play your Terravore, you play your Treetops, and you just keep smashing, because I don't think Mclean has a way to keep up with that.
No, I don't think I would be taking time off now to Stone Rain. I think you want to press your advantage. And I think that's going to give you the best chance of victory here.
Here comes Mr. Scary Terry, the Vor of the hour, outclassing all the other Vors, including a Magnivore and is there an Omnivore? I can't remember. What's the damn Vor that skips turns? Or I can't remember. That's that a Tog? It doesn't matter. He's a Scary Terry.
He's a Scary Terry.
He's a Scary Terry who tramples over his foes. Amazingly enough, though, only a 2/2, which is kind of crazy.
Well, what's interesting here is because he's against mono black, right? He's not getting much help. Right, Mclean's not fetching and artificially feeding the Vor, so that does make a difference.
Yes, it does. Now, do you think you take a second here I think you take a second here, Stone Rain a land, grow your Vor a little bit, and then just like swing in and play another Mongoose, which is what. Yep. Okay.
I think it's absolutely where I'd be at.
Well, 1 land down. The Rain of Stone has obliterated the swamp.
It's not irrelevant because certainly unlike elves, right? Zombies does have some 3 mana value creatures that might want to get down. And so keeping him on 2 lands, is not the worst thing to do here. He prevents double plays. He now really can't afford to go off on Bad Moon.
All right.
And that's it. And that's the concession.
Already going to go ahead and pick up game 1 here. We're taking a look at the sideboarding of Mclean. Here, he looks like he's bringing in some Snuff Outs, the Rot Lung, Perish, not a card we get to see very much. Destroy all green creatures. That's kind
Yeah.
of spicy.
I mean, that's your answer to Mongoose, right? I mean,
Exactly.
yeah,
But
that's the core issue with the threshold decks, right? Is if Mongoose hits threshold very quickly, and you're playing a bunch of 2/2s, it is difficult to kind of get through, and there's just a limited number of answers. But Perish is one of them.
yep.
Uh,
So
it's
Bad
definitely
Moon.
one of them.
Yep. So Bad Moon's a nerd coming out. Therapy's maybe coming out. Um.
Yep. Dress out.
Yep. I'm surprised all of them are coming out because a therapy on like a terror, or maybe he just thinks it's all. I mean, all the other stuff is better, I suppose.
I think probably the argument here is that he has enough removal to deal with the creatures other than Mongoose, and for that he has the Perish. Whereas the therapy, you always have the chance of of a whiff, and duress isn't really grabbing the cards that he cares about most in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, one thing that's interesting about Perish, one advantage that if this was against a green white, again, it's something like with Peluche, right? Then Perish is actually a little bit worse, right? Because you're not hitting, Exalted Angels. You still have to find other ways around that, right? Because Smother's not going to get that done
Yep.
if they've morphed. But I don't think that Arty has anything that Perish doesn't hit in this deck, and so that could be significant.
Exactly. All right. So it looks like he's deciding Bad Moon's going to come back in. I don't mind Bad Moon being in on the play because if you can go Sacramency or another one of your one
Right.
drops
Yep.
into Bad Moon, it's much better there. I could see Snuff Out being right because that 4 life could be relevant. I mean, because he has bolts in his deck. Like that's
Yeah.
not an inconsiderate way to close out a game.
Yep. No, it's not. It is totally viable. It gives you some reach if the board state stalls.
Mm-hmm. Um.
I think the
So
I think the argument for Bad Moon. So one of the things that makes this deck such an effective Dark Ritual deck is that one of the challenges of this deck is getting sort of gummed up, because you're trying to balance out getting your board ready and getting that Bad Moon down, and Ritual allows you to do that.
exactly. So now we're taking a look at Arty here, looking like
Yep.
Pyroclasm coming in, Savage Twister coming in.
Pyroclasm is legit against zombies. That is true.
Yep. So Stone Rains makes sense coming out. I would
Yep.
on the draw. It feels like Rays should come out. It just doesn't feel great.
You really need the right opener to make it work on the draw. But I'm inclined to agree. But those Pyroclasms really have a good chance of doing some serious work here.
So Crumble coming in, maybe he is expecting a Cursed Scroll, which is something Zombies has run in the past, or mono
Sure.
black decks. I mean, he doesn't have a whole bunch to come in. It looks like he's scared of artifacts or enchantments, but there's just not really any of that, unbeknownst to him,
Yeah,
in the deck.
it's possible he's worrying about something like a Phyrexian Furnace, eating up the yard.
Very possible. I mean, there's going to be some munching on the yard, but that is going to be in the form of a wretch who is very hungry.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I almost want the 2 Stone Rains until still in. Well, on the play, I want Rays. On the draw, I think I'd rather have the Stone Rains.
Sure, I think that makes sense. I think there's a case here too. I have to, I have to see the matchup more, right? But being able to eliminate Bad Mood from the equation essentially assures that whatever you have on your side of the board is going to be bigger than whatever Mclean has. So I think that there is some value in keeping in those naturalizes.
Sure. I just don't think you need to bring in more because
Sure.
for him to outclass, for any of his creatures to truly outclass you via Bad Moon, it's got to be a rough day because you're going to hit threshold half five
Sure.
pretty quick
Yep.
with deck.
You will.
3, 4, and then Terravor is, I don't know, however big
Yeah,
his booty is at that point. Um,
it
so
is. Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting here. All right, going into game number 2 here, we have Mclean on the play. Not another one drop. I think you have to get. I mean, he's got lands, he's got wasteland. It just this deck feels real different if you don't have a one
it
mana
does.
play. But he's
Yep.
going to keep it.
It's tough because you can't guarantee that you're going to get something necessarily better. But yeah, if you don't have a one mana play, whether that's Sarcomancy or even Ritual into any of this stuff, it does feel like you're a little slow. Wasteland might be able to even things out a little bit. Um,
Absolutely. Well, we're going to see the
yep,
nimblest of gooses
yep,
coming on out. Now there's a dark ritual.
yep,
This can power out a lot. We'll have access to 4 mana. I
yep.
think the play is ritual Rotlung. Nope,
I
Shepherd
think
of Nope, he's gonna wait. That's not a horrible idea because then next turn you can ritual and then possibly smother something.
sure.
Um, Rotlung does provide you that protection of against bolt, against things like that, though.
Yeah. No, Rotlung is in my matches against Mclean the card that I'm least happy to see because it start. You're no longer able to one for one.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're gonna move on here. A bolt took out that
Yeah,
the Shepherd of Rot. I would imagine hard casting the Rot Lung. So an interesting thing here, talking about Dark Ritual, and sort of we're in the less powerful mode, right?
right.
Because we've
Yep,
gotten to the point, yeah, it can do things, but its explosiveness is now deadened. So it's not a dead card. It's just not an amazing card.
correct.
It will still let you double spell, but not great. But we have a Rot Lung here, a
Yep,
great card to Pyroclasm, against Pyroclasm or Lightning Bolt.
yep.
Arty really wants this mongoose to get a little fatter. He would be very happy if this happened. Um, Port comes out. We're gonna. Okay, he's gonna bolt
Yep.
the reanimator. So 2/2 coming back on board.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense in the sense that you're trying to not get blown out by it if Pyroclasm, or you don't want that wiping away that effect. So you clear it now. You hope that he doesn't have a second, and then play cleanup later.
Yep. Where Bear coming down. This does so he's considering Werebear coming down. I mean, you have to do Werebear right here
I
because
don't think you can.
what are you really going to tap down that's going to matter? You can't tap down the wasteland because he's just going to blow up your port.
I guess the option here is if you tap down the swamp, a lot of this stuff requires black. If he doesn't know he's got the ritual in hand, um, you're trying to be tempo him out a little bit. I think I probably would have gone for the werebear just to get more of a presence on the board.
Yeah, looks like he's going to let that.
But
McLean's going to let that tap. Draws the land.
yep,
Um, you'd have to
yeah,
imagine it's wasteland, the port, ritual into something, right?
yep.
I mean, is it possible with the way this matchup's going and knowing his access to red, you get the port, play land, ritual, and just like hard cast a gem? Or no, gem palm is gem palm 6 or 4? It looks like it's 6 to hard cast. Is it?
Uh,
I can't quite tell on the screen.
yeah,
I imagine it's 6 because a 4/3
yeah,
for 4 is not the usual rate with a good cycling ability.
no, no.
Um, there can't be a way he lets this port live. Well, maybe he does.
I mean, I think he might want to get that Rotling out as protection. Um,
Hmm.
But I mean, theoretically, you could have. I think that's a spot where you consider going ritual. Because the problem with ritual at this point of the game, right now, we're sort of in the mid game, is that the fewer cards you have in hand and the more lands you have on the board, the less impressive the card becomes. And so, looking for opportunities where you can spend all that mana, I think becomes more important.
Mm-hmm. I do not think you are wrong. All right, so we are on Arty's turn. He drew another port. Double port can start getting interesting and messing with things, but he really needs to grow this mongoose or get other threats out here. Otherwise, these zombies will start chomping away at him.
It's maybe part of the calculus too is to not blow up the port just yet.
All right, looks like we might be getting a werebear coming out. A couple of 1/1s versus some 2/2s. Classic.
Yeah. That's not a big creature format, right? You're really kind of clawing for every little advantage you can get. And that's one of the things that makes the format so great. You don't have a snowballing situation really, and this is still anyone's game.
Gonna port down Swamp. We're gonna get a cycled Gem Palm in response. Gonna eat a little bit of Arty's life.
Yep.
There's a Lord of the Undead. That's
Okay,
not inconsiderable.
Nope, that matters.
And that's a Withered Wretch.
That also matters.
Ritual Lord of the Undead?
I think that's the play I'm making here.
Or is it Ritual Withered Wretch and eat graveyard stuff?
I'm not really. So I'm inclined to go with the Lord. The reason why I'm not going with the Wretch yet is you don't have much mana to take advantage of it once you cast it. And you have a smother if Terravore comes into play. So, you could say, all right, it'll help get you close, tamp down on threshold, but I would be just as inclined to drop it on the next turn.
All right. We'll have to see. Mclean gonna go ahead and think about this, taking his time. But you're right. He has answers to the Terravore. Lord of the Undead is the most impactful thing he can do. Really surprised he didn't do that main. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so he's going to go with the Wretch.
Okay. All right.
He's going to go with the Wretch. He's going to eat a Foothills.
Sure. And that's the right card to eat.
It is. I mean, so see, I kind of actually like this now, thinking about it more. If Mclean is thinking he might have Pyroclasm or something like that, he has to worry about the threshold. If Arty never reaches threshold, his creatures can't block the zombies. Like they're just not going to profitably. And each zombie that comes down, that Pyroclasm becomes worse and worse because of this Rot Lung, unless another Pyroclasm is drawn or another Lightning Bolt. So I think Mclean is in a great position here.
Yeah, I would
currently
agree. And the combination of the Wretch and the Lord of the Undead, regardless of the sequencing here, puts him in an incredibly strong position.
So it looks like he's going to go and eat a card. He's going to eat a bolt.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I think Arty just really stalled in this match in terms of getting his graveyard going. And that is the issue, right? With these threshold creatures, they are not especially intimidating until you hit that threshold.
All right, so we're still in the upkeep. Have to assume he's going to port something else on upkeep. There's nothing else going on with the mana. Is there any argument now to the graveyard is not a threat? You just go ahead and smother that werebear and just start bashing face?
I think that I do think there's an argument for that.
That's the second Lord.
Yep.
I mean, he doesn't know that makes a pyroclasm better
Yeah.
in theory, but I don't know. He's at 11. The zombies are nibbling on the toes. I don't know how much I like that attack with the rot lung right there. Okay, but
Yeah,
he
he can
had the
smother
smother. He
though.
had the
Yeah. Yeah,
smother.
he's got the
Sorry.
smother. Yep. Yeah, no,
See,
he's got the smother. So yeah.
Mclean is a good Magic player.
Well, no
Um,
one's putting. Don't beat yourself up. Nobody's putting more reps with this deck than McLean has. Like, the, you know, we'll talk about cyberpunkers being he does things with madness that no one else can do because his reps are off the charts. And while it's not nearly as pronounced here with zombies and McLean, like McLean is put in the reps of this deck, right? He knows what he can do.
mhm.
Um,
So we're gonna get a port here. Savage Twister drawn right now, but this Bad Moon
yep.
could be in. No, he's gonna go Lord of the Undead. That actually brings them in. No, because it'll just kill it. That's right. All the lords
Yep.
said are actually
Yep.
good lords and not overpowered lords. It doesn't pump
Yes.
itself.
Right. Exactly. So right, what you want now is you get the. I think you get the bad mood down, and then
Yes.
that gets your lords out of range
Yeah.
for subsequent plays, and now
Now there's going to be a
it's a pretty rough
wasteland.
spot to be in.
Yeah. Now I don't believe that McLean, unless he's like God reading, knows that there's a
Yeah.
Savage Twister there because it's a one
Sure.
of.
Right. Right.
But that was an insane play to do that.
Yep.
Like that just saved that won
Yep.
him that match there.
Yep. Yep.
All right. So McLean going ahead and picking up game number 2, heading into
Yep.
the sideboard here. See if there's any other changes on the play or on the draw for McLean. I think on the draw, as I said, I don't like um I don't like Bad Moon as much on the draw. I'd much rather have
Yeah.
some of the removal or maybe a therapy or something like that. So Zombie Master coming in. Zombie Master, though, regenerating all your zombies, kind of
Yep.
silly if it ever happens.
Yep. He knows he's got to worry about sweepers.
Yes, he does. Zombie Master also survives the sweeper. He's at 2-3.
Yep.
Shepherd of Rot coming out. Wretched coming back in because it survives a pyroclasm, still eats a bolt.
Yep.
Is there Contagion? Is that exile a black card and spread it for its free cost? Or is
That
I can't remember. Hmm.
So you can pay a life and remove one black card from the game. So you can exile for 2 -2 -1s.
Kind of like Snuff Out here because the game goes relatively large and like your biggest threat against you is the Terravore.
I think Snuff Out's fine. So I think so you have Werebear that can push out a Terravore early, but a Terravore coming out that early isn't going to be that large, especially because McLean is not artificially building the size of the Terravore.
No.
So this means that you have a very good chance later in the game of being able to simply cast Snuff Out without having to take the life to cast it for free.
No. So it looks like a Crumble coming back out for a mulch.
I think that makes the Crumble was not going to do anything meaningful.
The Crumble was a very nice piece of art that was
Yep.
in Arty's hand for the whole game.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to move on in here to game number 3. What have you thought about this matchup so far? Is it felt like the more aggressive his players gotten there? Actually, that's not even true because let's see. McLean didn't have a 1-drop per se last game.
No, he didn't. But I think this is partially a tale of, both players kind of had a stumble in their respective losses, right? So Mclean has a slower start in game one. Arty cannot find a way to hit threshold in game two and can't really get the engine going. Um, and so I think the matchup to me so far feels fairly even, and it will really come down to tight play and hoping that your deck does its thing, right? It does its thing effectively.
Yeah.
Um, I think that is a limitation. One of the advantages to the oath-based Terravore decks is that they can force their Terravore to get very large very quickly off of oath. And if you don't have that, then you are trying to do that manually, and you're not getting any help from a mono black deck to do that.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the trade-off, right? You can run the threshold creatures, which have certain advantages, but you are kind of at the mercy of doing things the old-fashioned way
Mhm.
if you want to get your things up there. Which is why I think bringing mulch back in is a good move in this particular matchup.
Looks like Arty is going to be mulliganing here for a sec. I believe he's going to be going down to 6.
Yep,
Um, looks like Mclean did keep. Um,
that's probably Mclean's best opener this game.
yeah, I would agree.
So what is Artie going to ship?
It has to be the hull breach. Like, yeah, maybe it gets a
Yep,
bad moon, but
yep. No,
who
I agree.
cares?
Yep,
He probably leads on the Forgotten Cave. Get that in
I,
there. Bolt whatever
yep,
happens.
yep.
All right, and then off to the races we go.
Yep. I mean, the other option is going to be, um, trying to get Werebear out there. You have to sort of assess whether or not you want to slow it. Yeah, I think a lot depends on whether he draws a land on this turn.
Gonna go ahead and go get a forest.
Yeah.
I'm maybe I'm not surprised. Maybe I'm slightly surprised we don't just bolt the
Bolt it.
token, but I
I
guess
think
there are better targets to hit.
I think there are better targets, and if he does not hit a land drop, then he's in trouble.
It's true. And he can also this way he can mulch in lightning bolt in the same turn
Yep.
as well. Okay, so this
Yep.
is better play. This is fine. This is fine.
Yep.
I'm just so used to bolting a threat from back in my
Sure.
old burn days when I used to play good decks.
I mean, to me, here an interesting question would be, and I think this is the bolt the bird mentality from from the red side is is it worth it to potentially smother the werebear and really hope you can stymie their mana development? Um,
Maybe, but he's so far off from
yeah,
threshold it probably doesn't matter.
yeah.
I am really surprised he mulched with his red source. That means he now cannot bolt, and he was relying on that mulch to find a red source. Huh. Interesting. So he can play a land, and then does he mulch again? Mulch again and get ready for a Terravore? I'm not sure about that one. I feel like he
Yeah.
should have maybe. I mean, he's valuing this bolt pretty highly. But that Shepherd of Rot is going to go ahead and deal at least some damage to him, so he'll get something off it. I don't know. What do you think of not bolting anything in those first couple of turns?
So I think it was correct to not bolt the token and play the werebear. I think the challenge that you run into here is, can you afford to wait for a better target? Right? And I'm not sure that he's going to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, so he'll get to kind of like where. I mean, he's going to naturalize this
Yeah,
moon here, which is fine.
sure.
I mean, there's no way you're chumping. Like naturalizing the moon is the same thing as chumping, and you get to keep your creature essentially.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think the way he keeps kind of hovering over that lightning bolt, I think he kind of realized he tapped that wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I agree because I think ideally you're gonna suck up the damage, but you at least have lightning bolt online if you need it.
oh, that Mox Diamond is sexy though.
Yes, it is. That's gonna
Uh,
help.
I, this is such an interesting matchup. So we're gonna mulch over here. Gonna miss out on a pyroclasm, but gonna get a lot of lands.
Yep.
Scary Terry is gonna get scary real quick.
Yeah, Scary Terrors probably get smothered equally quickly. So
He is. He pissed off the wrong people. The pillow
he
is
did.
coming for him. I've been rewatching because I saw the ads for it, the Sopranos for their 20
Oh, okay.
whatever anniversary. So I've got a lot of like someone's
Yep.
gonna get hit.
Yeah, they are.
I just
Yep.
too many references. But yes, no, that Smother's gonna get interesting. That is a 4/4 werebear, so he is racing in theory
Yep.
right now. Not playing the Terravor? I'm really confused. What happened?
Yeah, I'm not sure. He had not made a land drop. Yeah. It's possible just a misplay. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Because it's
Right, he
big
didn't
enough.
make a land drop, correct? I'm right on that, right? He did not make a land
He
drop?
did not make a land drop, but he drew the extra lands. I'm not. I
So,
see.
like, the
Okay, so
fourth level the
if
fourth
you
level
were,
chess play here is to think maybe tempt him to smother the werebear, tempt him to try and blow remove on werebear and protect your Terravor, but
yeah, I mean, so the threats that the thing about this is like the threats that kill Terravor aren't damage based. So
right.
holding it to get it bigger doesn't matter.
No. No, it does not.
Um so he's racing. I don't does he outrace two Shepherd of Rots? I mean, he's got a
No.
bolt. This werebear is just gonna get smothered, but then I think he just wins next turn actually. Because so he can do whatever. Like, so he'll activate Shepherd of Rot. Everyone takes 3 down to 9. Then he activates Shepherd of Rot down to 6, down to 3, and then he gem palms him.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, I think not. I mean, you can't know. We have the hindsight of seeing all the
Sure, of
stuff
course.
here,
Yep.
but not killing something with that bolt. Like when he saw that second Shepherd of Rot coming down, I think you have to kill the first Shepherd of Rot.
Yeah, it's going to be unfortunate if you get to a point where the bullet at some point is going to be irrelevant.
Yeah, so he's gonna everyone to 3, cycle the this, and that's gonna do it. Yep. Why didn't he kill the other Shepherd of Rout with summoning sickness right there with the bolt?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I love Arty to death. I think maybe there were a couple misplays along play here because if he kills that, like if he lightning bolts the summoning 6 Shepherd of Rot, it's less damage coming in. He takes the less from the gem palm. I mean, I guess there is a. How does that work though? If he shepherds and shepherds, oh, he's not. Oh, he's going to swing. Is there a window where he can lightning bolt him to the face if he does it wrong?
I I am not
He
sure.
could force a draw
He
in
could,
theory.
which would probably just break Magic Online if we're being.
Yeah. So take 2. Yeah. That Shepherd or Rod will do it.
Right.
Yeah, I think there were just a couple points in this matchup where Arty could have effectively used that lightning bolt better. I think he maybe held it too long, and I'm not sure why.
Yep.
It just feels like there were a couple areas that maybe it could have been fired off better. Because, yeah, they'll take 4, but that still doesn't put him in bolt range. And that's going to kill. And he targets himself with the lightning bolt. That's my man. And he's going to fetch himself. Come on, Arty. You can do it. Is he really going to respond and not let him do this? Oh, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it, Mclean. You did. You ruined it. You're mean. Let the man go out with some dignity. Mclean. Just no dignity. It's all right. He's thinking about. He did it. Did he? Did he? No, he hasn't put it on the stack yet. He's thinking of.
See,
Wait, is he lightning bolting the other? I'm confused. I don't know what's going on. Is he targeting the? I don't know what he's doing. Well, there's the game.
yeah, that's it. That's it.
All right. Mclean going ahead and picking up the win, beating Arty. What did you think of that match, Chris?
I think it really illustrated for me 2 things. One, just I think how underrated zombies is as an archetype. It has a lot, even though it's mono black, it has a lot of tools. It's resilient. It has redundancy. It can put down a lot of pressure. And I think it also demonstrates, the threshold decks, in my opinion, are only as good as how quickly they can activate thresholds, right, and maintain it. Especially because they do not have the same ability to force a large Terravore on their own as quickly as the Oath-based builds can. And I think we saw in games 2 and 3, right? Arty struggled to get, certainly in game 2, to get Threshold online at all. And it took a while to get going in game 3. And by that point, Mclean had established a board presence, and I don't think racing was really going to be an option given where that game ended up.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Guys, that was Mclean Denny versus Arty in a wonderful matchup. I was joined here by Mr. Iron Lungs himself, Chris DiBiase. My name is William Hurst, and we are going to catch you in the next batch. I hope everyone enjoys, and stay tuned.